legend, the myth. Dude, he's here in front of us. His name is Yurif Wallach. Hello. How are you?
Jamie, how you doing, buddy? Good to be back for another episode. Today it's only you and I, but I'm kind of excited for this one. This is the first time in a while that me and you have really been able to, get on this podcast by ourselves and just rant. And I think that's what this episode is going to be like today.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, my hair is looking pretty good. I finally dialed it up, cut it and did all this different things and stuff, have it style and whatever, making myself look fresh in this COVID pandemic world with these two-year-old and a week-old baby running around.
Yeah. It's fantastic. You look like a gem, my friend. You look fantastic.
Oh, man. You know why?
All new life.
But you do too. And I think there's a reason why. And it's because there was a beautiful person on the ice today. And yes, everybody's beautiful at the Flyers skate zone, but there was a very merry player, and his name was Oscar Lindblom, who freaking laced up his skates, went for the tour, went around, just looked so happy being there with the boys, cranking slap shots and everything from the Flyers videos and stuff. Unbelievable. Yurif, I know, like, you feel as well, like me, I'm pretty sure you were overcome with emotion, serious emotion when you saw that, because tears came to my eyes and different things, and I don't care, and I admit it. You know what I mean? I'll cry like a baby if I have to, because this young man means so much to us. I say us because we're one. And just what were your feelings of Lindblom hitting the ice?
Yeah, man. I think you said that pretty well. It's like, it's so funny, right? Everything's been so miserable, and there's just so much bad news on Twitter every day, and all of a sudden there's like a ray of sunshine. All of a sudden, and remember, in my player profile video, I call Oscar Lindblom a gift, right? And it's almost like that again was a gift, right? Like, there is something special about that kid, and just for him to come back to look that good after, like, I mean, from what I understand, he's still going through the end of treatment, right? I mean, to be playing, I think for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, he was on the ice or something like that.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
That stuff is exciting. And honestly, it goes back to kind of what we were saying. Don't ever count out an athlete. Like, stop betting against these guys. I say it all the time. Everybody bets against athletes. That is the wrong bet to make. These are the type of people who will work harder. They will train harder. They will pay attention to their diet harder. They will literally manifest success through will. And that's why, like, obviously it's not clear cut across the board, but it's awesome to see that Oscar Lindblom back on the ice, because he wants it, and he'll keep battling. And the fact that there's a hint that he could come back, and obviously not for these playoffs, and maybe not even for the beginning of next season, even if it starts in December, but maybe even for like a playoff run, or maybe halfway through next season. Yeah. I mean, it was just fantastic to see, man, especially after everything, all the other news.
It was great. It was phenomenal. He did say that he was nearing the end of his treatments, that they're about to end soon. He did not give the amount of time in the audio that you were also sent through Zach Hill as well. But that was very comforting to know that he is nearing the end of his treatments, and that he is comfortable in a COVID world, to be in the skate zone, to where, there were 11 positive tests through the NHL last week. But you know what? Evidently, it's maybe not as bad as what it appeared, because according to Charlie O'Connor, the great Charlie O'Connor, he was given that the doctors, and everything were on board with him skating at the Flyers skate zone with his teammates. So if that's the case, which it is, because he was given that, so that, I'm not saying if that's the case, but that's awesome stuff, to hear. And not only that, but like Chuck Fletcher also put out a message, and Fletcher's hitting on all notes with all the players anyway. He's a very comforting, he's a gem.
God bless him.
Oh my God, dude. You can show that he really cares for these players. And it all started before, when training camp was about when the preseason was about the end, and Carson Schwerinski and Connor Bunneman were making the team, and he had their families, down there at the steps and stuff. That was kind of cool. It showed that he is a human being. He really does care for these guys, So, like, hearing his statement today that Oscar Lindblom will, he's very optimistic that he will return to play for the Flyers. at some point.
Amazing.
Dude, that brought chills to me because we know Fletcher for who he is. He's a very kind gentleman. He's caring, but he does a freaking awesome job, and he loves Oscar Lindblom.
Yeah, man. No, I don't mean to cut you off. It's making me think about something we've talked about before. And remember, I was talking about intangibles not too long ago and how I believe that most people really don't understand what intangibles actually means when it comes to like the veteran presence and how people mock it. And what I think it really is defined as is the ability to love one another, the other teammate.
Yeah.
If you look at the way Fletcher behaves, you don't have to use the word love, whatever you want, but you can tell he takes ownership. And I'm not saying Hextall didn't do this, right? We didn't really see that side of Hextall. He's very closed off, obviously. I do believe he does have a lot of that as well, and we just didn't see it publicly much. But ultimately, I think it's that attention to detail, like the ability to love his players, right? To give them the time, give them the benefit of the doubt, not talk about trading Ghost. Like, we don't even know the conversations that Chuck Fletcher had with Ghost in the background, right? Obviously, I'm talking about a different player. But again, that's kind of what I see as an intangible for a GM standpoint is how do you make your players feel like they're part of the family? That is something Ed Snyder had more than anybody ever, right? Yep. Ed Snyder could literally bring that onto an entire city. That man was so powerful. And, I do see some of that in Chuck Fletcher. I don't want to say he's like Ed Snyder-like and everything. I don't want to put that on him. But he does show that attention to detail. And, even look at Chris Stewart, right? Chris Stewart, I respect him. His NHL game is not really there anymore, right? But those intangibles that we were talking about, you could see it. It's palpable with Stewart. The way he talks, the way he works. There's a reason he was with all of these young kids, right? It's like it shows that same skills in Fletcher. Agreed.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why Chris Stewart was brought in. He was the Wayne Simmons-like of the locker room because Fletcher knew they lost a big piece with Wayne Simmons last year, during the trade deadline, but he knew he had to replace him in some way because he was that valuable in the locker room. Even during a crazy season that it was, Fletcher knew he had to replace that, and that was Chris Stewart. He took Nolan Patrick under his wing, from being hurt. Yep. Fair B offered him to his house for Thanksgiving. Chris Stewart didn't have to do all this stuff. But again, Fletcher is a smart man. Fletcher, at the exit interviews of last year, he flat out said that he was going to make this locker room less toxic. And he outlined his plan, getting a center, getting better defensemen, getting another forward, getting a right-handed defenseman, ensuring up Carter Hart's, back end, with some. And what did he do? He hit on every single note. He did exactly what he was going to do. The locker room is vibrant I've ever been around in about 5.5 years. I've never been around this type of locker room in my life with the Philadelphia Flyers. So like to see this is pretty neat. And I don't know, man.
That's a good point. No, I'm with you on that.
That locker room.
Yeah.
Last year it was crazy. You could hear a pin drop in there. It wasn't fresh. It wasn't vibrant. It wasn't buzzing. People were holding their heads down, and losing does that. But there was more than just losing.
I completely agree with you.
So
it was almost like they didn't have hope, right? It was almost like they lost like hope in something. Hope that there was like something better coming. And I think that's why you reset. I'm not jumping on Dave Haxtell. I don't believe there's anything wrong with him as a person. Like, I truly believe that. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of our coaches as a person. And even somebody, Michelle Therrien, who I was harsh on, I've actually read a lot about him that people love Therrien and that my perception of him through the media is different than that in the locker rooms, right? And just because somebody's a hard ass doesn't mean that's necessarily how the players view him, right? Yeah. And I think you saw that in the locker room. I mean, again, look at the players he brought in. Braun, Hayes, Niskanen, Stewart, right? Like Chris Stewart, you wouldn't even look at that as a big – all extremely positive guys. And then why did they re-sign Brian Elliott, right? Like Cam Talbot was kind of bitter that he wasn't playing. Maybe that was a test. Maybe they wanted to see, what happens if we sit you a bunch? Are you going to be able to handle it? And maybe he didn't handle it that way. And maybe Brian Elliott just
I did not. I've never heard that one before. I
just
have
thought
not
of
heard
it.
that. I didn't even hear that, to be honest. You just thought of that? That's a
Yeah.
pretty no. Dude, that was pretty good. I never even thought of that. That is a very
Yeah.
good point because Fletcher knew who the man was going to be. It was all but his to lose. In training camp, it was Carter Hart's. It was Carter Hart's net to lose, and
Right.
obviously he was confident that he would not lose it, barring an injury. And
Agreed.
yeah, that is a very good point because everyone was wondering, including myself. You trade a Stolars who was playing a little bit, hurt,
Yep.
comes back, plays, and whatever keeps getting called up, and you trade him for Cam Talbot, and he doesn't play. He played what, 2 games or something,
Yep.
and everyone's trying to think, including myself, why is he sitting? That dude, that just made a lot of sense right there. It's because he wasn't going to be the guy. So all this time I was wondering, and a lot of other people were wondering, why did you trade for Cam Talbot to just sit him? It didn't make sense, and I didn't have any answers. People were asking me in my mailbags and everything else. I didn't have any answers. The Flyers didn't have any answers. So when you ask, someone, hey, no one knows why he's sitting. Your point was just logical there. You weren't going to be the guy this coming season. You may have had to sit for 6 or 7 games. Would you be comfortable in your role sitting for 6 or 7, or are you going to create a shitstorm, behind the scenes in the locker room and be bitter and just bring down the morale and be negative energy in that locker room if you're not playing? That's a very good point. That's the most logical.
Or and maybe not so. I don't want to assume that Cam Talbot would be negative, but it's almost like that same intangibles thing, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Well, no, yeah, no. I'm with you. I'm just saying that like maybe it's not so much that maybe Cam Talbot might be a negative, but maybe he's not going to mentor Carter Hart in the way that they really need it. Where I think Elliott's kind of maybe accepted that his career is being sunsetted. You know what I mean? He's had a really long career in the NHL. He's been a starter. He's been everywhere. You know what I mean? To like
really
accept his role gracefully, right?
A great career. When you're able to withstand in
All-star.
the NHL for 12 or 13 years, okay, that means you did something right. You just don't
an
play
all-star too.
Exactly. And he had really good years with the St. Louis Blues. So like,
Right.
he's had not a great, but a good career to where you're able to say, you know what? I did my darn job. I'm giving myself a pat on the back. I did a job well done. You're absolutely right. But before we leave this Lindblom topic, I just wanted to say something because I know you're feeling it too. I personally believe that the Flyers just became the most deadliest team in the NHL with him lacing his skates up today and skating with the guys. And you know why? Because it's just going to rub off on those guys. The more that Lindblom skates, the more that he's around that facility, the more he's around this team. They will never forget, and I'm sure they don't forget anyway, but they will definitely have something to play for in the back of their mind. We're playing for Oscar, who may even could he be at the Bubble Life? We don't know. He may be there. There's no saying he wouldn't, so they may bring him. They may bring him for spirits, because the season wouldn't start until August. Let's just say hypothetically, if his treatments do end, and I'm not saying they are, I don't want everybody to say I am, but if his treatments do end before before they have to quarantine, themselves for multiple weeks, before the season begins, or whatever the plan, they're going to quarantine at least 2 weeks before the hub city, before they start playing the games at their hub city that they're supposed to. But let's just say if the treatments do end, would they? Or even if they end when the play is going on, could he enter? If he quarantines properly, who knows? Or they might do FaceTime or whatever. But to me, the Flyers just became the most deadliest team in the NHL with number 23 freaking lacing them up.
He's obviously a big motivation to some degree, and we've seen it before. It's not just with Lindblom and the Flyers, right? Remember a few years ago, Ottawa went to the finals, right? Brian Murray, obviously he was going through cancer at the time, and Erik Karlsson was. I remember that, right? They said we were playing for him, and he's actually a very beloved man, and I do remember that a lot of people really love that man. And again, intangibles.
Greg Anderson himself.
Intangibles.
Greg Anderson that year went through
with his wife. right? There you go.
Crazy stuff. So like yeah, yeah.
That's but no, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean, I was just saying these are another example of intangibles, which I think people don't really understand. I think they assume that it's on ice stuff, But I can tell you, man, as somebody who works in the professional world, I know you work with people as well, and I don't think it matters to what level you work. This is stuff that's always important in any job, in any circumstance. These are the people that glue your team and your organization together, without a doubt, 100%. You can see it everywhere. Everywhere. You can see the ones that don't behave that way. Look at the Ottawa Senators with the way that owner treats his team, the lack of love that he shows to that team. It trickles down to everything else underneath it, right? They had the video that came out, right, of them talking shit about their team, right? Making fun of their coaches. That doesn't happen if you have a team. Even if you're not satisfied, you don't go in the public and make those statements.
Yeah, I agree.
You keep that to yourself, right? Because you don't want to disrupt your family, right? Your season. The journey is more important than you. And that's like the whole thing that a team buys into. And when a team is not operating that way, it's noticeable, man. You got to feel the love,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to the next topic because you know what? I love Lindblom. I know you do too. And we could talk about him. Honestly, we could talk about him for a straight hour, and because that's how giddy this guy was, and classy he was. But we can't do that because there's other topics to talk about. And the next big topic is hub cities. And so the NHL today has narrowed the hub cities down to 6 cities. Columbus is out. Pittsburgh is out. So now we have Vegas, Toronto, LA, Chicago, Vancouver, and Edmonton are the 6 hub cities. Reef, what are your 2 hub cities that you're looking for? What are the front runners? What are you hearing, in terms of your sources? Where would you like the Flyers to play? Does it even matter where they play? Is a rink a rink?
It's interesting. I don't think it matters. Maybe the time zone thing might be a little bit of an issue, but I think everybody's out of their comfort zone with this one. Again, I prefer not having anybody with a home advantage at all, right? But it looks like there's going to be one team that probably has home advantage unless it's like LA. Like I would have been pro LA. I think that city, no offense to people who live in Los Angeles right now, it's kind of a mess. I personally don't think that that's going to happen. I would pretty much exclude LA immediately at this point. I'm surprised they're even on the list. And I think it's really just because the Kings are such a respected team that I think it's more about the Kings themselves and the market size and the fact that there's a lot that you can work with there. But the rules underneath California, I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw Gavin Newsom expects everybody to wear masks like until the end of the year. They're going to avoid all of these places, in my opinion. I think most likely they're going to try to go to places that have less regulation and less hurdles to deal with. So, like, Vegas, I think, is still a pretty good choice. I'm pro Toronto because I think Toronto will make it happen. They're hockey crazy. They won't care. They will push stuff out of the way to make this happen. And that's why I buy into Toronto. I love the idea of Vancouver because it's like a beautiful city, and I think there's a lot to do there. Exactly. It's a really gorgeous place. So I think honestly all of these places have their benefits. But I would go with somewhere warm, I guess, and maybe that's why they're thinking Los Angeles, right? Because it's, I actually just saw something in the New York Post where they're saying that coronavirus can die 34. Again, apologies if this is not accurate, but I'm just reading the news. But I'm seeing that 34 minutes that the coronavirus can die out in the sun, right? So these are things that maybe that they're considering, right? I got my players going out; they can go hang out on the beach. That's safe for them in comparison to hanging out in cold weather. Luckily, it's summer, so we have some of that. But for me, it's any of them, though. For me, I'm just like, whatever works for you guys, let's just make it happen. Like I'm cool with it, And I don't know exactly why they're excluding certain areas. I imagine it has to do with the people around them that are willing to make it work, right? It's like You got to find two cities that want to put up with all the headaches, right? That come with the coordination. So it's a big profitability, though, at the same time, especially if somewhere along the way they can even open up the stadium to like half capacity, right? And maybe have people sit like, seats away from each other or whatever and sit in like clusters. I don't know. They can recoup some revenue that way, too. I have no idea. I'm sure people won't like that idea. But again, I'm just throwing out suggestions.
Yeah. No, I understand. I'm sort of in agreement with you. Vegas to me has always been a front runner, just because there's a lot of stuff to do there. Vegas has a weird way of putting stuff together and making it work. So, whether it be outdoor movies on a nice night, for the players, whether it be pools, for the players, or whether it be bocce ball, doing just various stuff, for the players. There is adequate space. It's big enough. It's large enough. They've done this stuff before. So this is this is not a one-trick pony. They may not be familiar with the quarantining aspect, but there's just multiple areas, to go to get this done.
Just getting a thought here, though, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I know we were talking about this a while ago. I know the NBA was discussing Disney. I mean, there is a Disney in Los Angeles as well. Could that be something that they're discussing also, where like they because I don't think Disney's open at the moment. At least I don't believe. And I know Disney and ESPN. Maybe ESPN.
I know there's yeah.
Oh, I do want to add something. I ripped the ESPN the other day. Remember that? I kind of laid into them for nobody cares about hockey. I just want to point out that the ESPYs had an 81% drop in viewership. I think it's all-time low. So ESPN is at the very bottom of their success. I don't think I can go any lower. So all the smack that they talk, you can keep it to yourself. Anyway, let's continue.
Carry on, right? So Vegas has always been a front runner in my books, but I'll tell you, a city that goes off the radar for me is Edmonton. And the reason that I think Edmonton can get the nod over Toronto is because they put forth a heck of a damn proposal again. This is the second proposal from the city of Edmonton, because they put forth a proposal before saying that there could be cooler nights. They have golf. They could do golf outings. They could do outdoor movies. They have pools, if the weather is nice, they could do this, they could do that. They had all these different things, broken down for the players to do and activities that they can do. And yesterday they put forth a heck of a thing again for more, but they added some things in there because the families mean so much to the players. And I think that some players are worried about their families, and that may be one reason why they might not participate in this. They want to make sure that they have taken care of the families. So this OEG will give the families vacations to 4 different locations. There was a lake, and I forget what the lake was called, and there were 3 other locations, and it could be more, but I'm pretty sure it was just 4. And I was like, wow, darn, that's pretty freaking sweet. That they're taking care of the families, so that puts the players at ease mentally to get over the bubble life here, to play in this bubble life, and to play at 100%. So I thought that was kind of that they were offering, and I do not recall any of the other 5 locations offering families vacations. So I was like, okay, they may get it, just for that, because I thought that was kind of neat, and it means a lot. And it means a lot to the NHLPA, because when they're bringing this and they say, okay, all right, cool, because the NHLPA has to sign off.
Well, it's actually interesting. And to add to that, I mean, the population of Edmonton is not going to be as big as Toronto or Vegas or Vancouver or Los Angeles. Like these other cities, they have larger populations. And not just that. And this just kind of came. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jamie. Say what you want to say.
If somebody asked me today what 2 cities they would be, to me is Vegas and Edmonton. And I know it'd be excluding the East Coast.
Well, actually, technically, this is the point I wanted to make. It actually excludes both coasts, if you think about it, because it's Pacific time for
That's
both cities.
Yeah.
So that is actually, now that I'm like thinking about it, if you think about just because you're playing it on television, right? So you find that middle ground. So, your games are not as early as you're worried that they would be, though you got nothing really to compete with right now. But, you got that time zone maybe advantage where you're kind of right in the middle with the Pacific time zone, and you don't have to cater to the East or the West. You kind of just force everybody to meet in the middle. So, like, literally, right? So maybe, and I think those are pretty good points. I mean, quite frankly, if I would be pretty satisfied with an Edmonton, Vegas. And it sounds kind of weird, like what Edmonton, Vegas. You think like New York, LA, but under the circumstances, makes sense.
And you know what else was kind of neat, Yuri? Yesterday, Carter Hart spoke, and you know that. Carter Hart spoke, and he said that he was under the impression that they were going to play at least one exhibition game. So then, later in the day, the NHL came out and said, yes, Bill Daly told Sam Carchidi, saying, yes, the plan is to play one or two exhibition games before the round robin tournament begins. So
can't wait.
Brian Elliott. That's great for Carter Hart because what if they play
Morgan
two exhibitions?
Frost, German Rubtsov.
Absolutely. All these black aces get a shot.
Right.
Possibly Nolan Patrick gets a shot. Why not?
No.
Until they say that he cannot play, I'm under the impression that he's going to play because the Flyers have not said if he will play or not yet. Chuck Fletcher's remained optimistic all year, saying that Nolan Patrick would play. So, hey, I have no reason to fault the guy. He's the nicest guy. He's not just going to say this stupid stuff, about a player, right?
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I don't care if I get crap for this. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, I have almost zero doubts that Nolan Patrick is coming back to the NHL. I mean, you can tell me his career is over. I just don't buy it. I'm sorry. I keep hearing doom and gloom from everybody, and I don't buy it. Like, you can tell me he maybe might not come for the playoffs, sure. But again, I don't believe in this doom and gloom. I see a 15-year cycle ahead of this kid. It's like, why are we taking 1 year of his career and stretching it out over at least a decade? Sure, it's possible, but we have so many options the other way. It's like the same thing with Lindblom. Yes, Ewing sarcoma affects the average person. Why are you betting against athletes? I keep saying it's the same theme. Why are you betting against a kid who's essentially being tailored to be a superstar? He's not going to quit. He's going to be like, oh, yeah, I guess I'm broken. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, he could sit out the playoffs. He's still going to be working with the medical staff. He's still going to be trying to come back. You're still going to see him at practices. You're still going to see him with the team. That is not going to go away. And anybody thinks that he's just going to go sit at home and sit on his ass and wait for his career to end, you have another thing coming. That does not exist. I have yet to see a single athlete behave that way at all. And I mean, even at the lower levels, you don't play hockey because you get paid. You got to this point because he loves it, and he's definitely going to fight to keep it. So betting against these guys, again, that's not a bet I would make. So my opinion, he's coming back, even not for this playoffs. I do expect him back. Just like, I don't know why you'd want any other message outside of positivity for this kid. You cannot manifest his decisions through your complaints about it. It's not going to help you. You know what I mean? What the results will be the results. And quite frankly, history has proven to us that most players, when they deal with serious problems, they tend to come back. They don't tend to fall quietly into the night. Like, we can go through a lot of NHL players who have had very bad things happen and yet continue to come back. Yes, there's cases where it's not possible, right? Like, we even had Wellwood, right, with the torn ligament, right, that the Achilles. That it happens. It definitely happens. But I would actually put that more on the rare case than the defined case. And with something like Nolan Patrick, there's enough history with athletes to see there is a good % chance that they will find a solution to his problem and he will play. And that's my attitude. And people can rip on me for being positive. That's fine. I'll eat it when he doesn't come back. Throw it in my face when he doesn't. But, I mean, you're going to have a long career there to wait for me to be wrong. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, oh, I agree. I agree 100%. I think he comes back, and I think he comes back for this 2014 playoff format.
I love
I
that.
have no reason. I have no reason to
Yes.
think that he would not. He's had over a year off, and I understand this is a serious issue, and I understand it. But if he's healthy, he should play. I don't care if he sat out for 2 years. If he's healthy, he should play. Why? Because there is no talent that can match a Nolan Patrick's at this point, with the exception for Oscar Lindblom. And we already know that Oscar Lindblom cannot play in the 2014 playoff format. I would rather have Nolan Patrick in there over Morgan Frost. I would have rather have
Easily.
him in there over Carson Sherwinski or Connor Bunneman. And I'm not throwing them, prospects away. It's just because I think that Nolan Patrick is a better player at this particular time than
I
than you know than those
no,
prospects.
I'm
So
with dude. I would rather have Nolan Patrick off the entire year, and this is not a knock on any of our bottom six forwards, but I would replace any one of them with Nolan Patrick day one, and I stand by that statement. That kid is immensely talented. I know a lot of people want to pretend like he's not. I don't see that. That's not what I see when I watch Nolan Patrick play. I see a highly talented yet unrefined player. That's it. That's what I see. A kid learning the NHL game who's hit a road bump. And again, nobody even talks about Samuel Morin anymore. He's essentially just a dead entity. But again, I don't bet against these athletes. And again, maybe Morin won't be an NHL player like people want him to, but I highly doubt he's not going to be playing professional hockey.
right, no, I agree with you there. And it's crazy. This wasn't even part of the topics tonight, but you know what? We just love
I
talking.
said we're going to rant.
There we go, and
It
it's
had
great.
all the makings of a
But
rant.
this needed to be said because there was so much hate out there today. So it's kind of weird. We didn't even want to touch on it, but we just sort of filtered that way anyway. Because when you talk about hub cities and you're talking about reconvening and stuff, this stuff needs to be talked about. We can't just
Yes.
push this stuff to the wayside. So everybody, we're not dissing on whatever you believe or whatever, but this stuff needs to be talked about. And we're going to talk about it, whether people want to talk about it or not. Whether
Yeah,
people are afraid to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. You don't have to agree with our opinions or whatever. We respect your opinion as well. So if you have a different opinion, I respect that, and your reef does
of
too.
course.
But
Of course, and let us know. I mean, let us know. Comment on the videos for sure.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
we're down for the debate, and don't think that you don't agree with us. I will say this one thing because we live in an age right now where people can't read anything on the internet without getting upset. Know that Jamie and I do not get angry at counter opinions. Sure, we might not agree with you. We might talk to you. We do not hate anybody who doesn't agree with us. I'm going to make that clear right now. There is no hate. This is just fun. You guys don't want to agree? That's fine. This is sports, right? This isn't. We're not sitting here insulting each other's families, right? And that is where everything loses the point. The point is that this is supposed to be fun, and like if you guys don't agree with us, let us know. Let us know why. We've had some good conversations with people who bring up valid points on why they think he's done, right? But let's have those conversations. So I totally agree, Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I don't always agree as well. But
Right,
yet,
of course.
here we sit here today and respect each other a lot, dude. I love you, bro. But listen, we
Let's
gotta
go, buddy.
gotta talk about other stuff because there was something else that
Keep
came
it
up
rolling.
in the NHL. Phase 2 is now up starting tomorrow from 6 players to 12 players on ice, 12 players in for workouts. What are your feelings on that? Do you think it's too soon? Do you think the NHL should have waited possibly until next week or the following week after to make sure that COVID wasn't around, especially with all these different players trickling back into the facilities now?
No, I think it's about time. I mean, I was a little surprised. It's not like I saw it coming, but I think they need to just push forward and just keep on rolling. When a team gets sick with the flu, again, not comparing it to the flu, you have to call up players. You got to sit people out. If that's what happens, then a player's not playing in the playoffs. Sorry, but every team is susceptible to that same problem. And I think getting people in there, getting this rolling, getting that confidence going is a lot more important than just, kind of hiding from it. I think kind of easing it in. And I think if they made the jump, it's because they feel good about it and they want to do it. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if the players complained to a degree, like how are we supposed to practice if there's only 6 of us on the ice at a time, right? Like, and not just players, the coaching staff, like, you have to move this forward if you really want to give them an ability to get back into game shape. You can't hide from it. Yes, if there's a big medical emergency, I'm sure the flag will be raised, and then we'll all be upset, and it'll be what it is. But they said it from the very beginning. The NHL said we will not be stopping if there is COVID, and I don't think they should. I think they should continue through. I think they should continue to get teams together, see how to make this work. Because again, there's no perfect timeline here. It's about finishing this season out and then building. Because we're gonna have another window of nothing after this, right? Like, we're gonna have to wait for next season too. So I think that this is the right move. I think it makes people uncomfortable, and I'm okay with that. As long as the players are not being forced into it, which I don't believe they are, because the NHLPA would not be doing this. And the players who are being forced into it, at least they feel that way, you can be benched.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to show, right? So I doubt we're gonna see that, to be honest with you. So I'm pretty for it. How about you?
Yeah, I am too. I was kind of shocked it was this early, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. I thought it'd be, maybe next Monday, maybe not so much, Wednesday, because of the 11 that have tested positive or false positives, whatever, last Friday. So I believe that they did get some information. And to me, there's a few thoughts that are going through my head. Maybe some were false positives is one thought. My second thought was maybe the NHL and teams, for that matter, because the teams are responsible for the testing in phase 2. The NHL doesn't take over until phase 4 for these coronavirus testings. So I wonder if teams were able to get a stash of 30-minute tests where you get the results in 30 minutes as opposed to waiting 2 or 3 days, because I don't think that they would have, with all players, they know players are starting to trickle back when they want or whenever they see fit, because they haven't been mandated by the NHL to return to their base cities before phase 3 begins on July 10th. The NHL, for me, won't mandate that since they haven't mandated it thus far. And I think that they're getting these 30-minute tests since all these different players are starting to trickle back at different times. So when the new players come, boom, they could test them, they get the results right there. You could enter, you can't, or whatever. What I mean?
Exactly.
Aside from the temperature testing and all this other, stuff, precautions that
it's interesting too. And again, I am ignorant to this, so I'm sure somebody can correct me and call me stupid about this topic. But I wonder if there is some value in kind of building the immunity within the organization, within the league as well. And maybe that's something that they're trying to do for next season to some degree. Like, even if they, let's just say worst comes to worst and they don't even have the playoffs, which I do not believe is going to happen. But if you think about it over time, we're trying to build immunities over time. These are healthy athletes. I know it affects everybody different. There's some players with pre-existing conditions. I will point out, though, and I said this to you prior, Oscar Lindblom was on the ice today, and he's going through, and the doctors gave him permission to do that. So something to keep in mind for everybody who's very worried about this. It's not actually like the end of the world for each and every person that has a pre-existing condition. We're not exactly sure what is causing some of these deaths. We have a bunch of speculation. We know some pre-existing conditions. We know diabetes, right? There, all these players. So, and I understand people's risk and fear, and you're ever to bash me if I don't know every detail right for the medicine and health and whatnot. And that's where all this stuff gets tricky. But I think it's important to just keep moving forward as much as you can, even if it's baby steps. Keep moving forward back to getting your league up and running. There are thousands of people who rely on this work and rely on keeping these leagues alive. The longer we sit out, the longer we pretend like we're not coming back, the bigger the risk, the bigger the money loss, the most loss of leverage, being in shape. You really want the players to be working to come back, because as soon as that safe point, if there is one, right, which I believe there will be, you want to be ready for it, right? Even if you're not going into it perfectly, you want to be ready for it. So I'm for it. I'm definitely for it.
I am too, and it just upsets me that Friday would have been the draft, Saturday would have been, rounds 2 through 7, and you're looking at Monday. Monday would have been what? The start of developmental camp, man. Developmental camp, man, that is one of the best parts of hockey, man. I love I love covering developmental camp. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, dude. First summer in a while, I can't go.
It is what it is. But you know what, though? There's light at the end of the tunnel when we're given this news of Oscar Lindblom and seeing him skate. Maybe Nolan Patrick will come back. Who knows? I do not have information on that. I do know that Kevin Hayes is going to skate this week. I thought he would have laced him up today, more or less, maybe hopefully tomorrow. Maybe he wanted to give Oscar Lindblom his day, or maybe the Flyers did too, and that's why they didn't announce if Kevin Hayes, was going to.
That is a beautiful point, Jamie. I'm sorry to interrupt you, because think about how great PR that was for the team today.
Yeah.
It just sells itself.
Dude.
You don't even need to just put him on the ice. You know what I mean? You want to bring some joy to your fans. I mean,
for the whole
he's
NHL.
the guy to do it.
For the whole NHL, for that matter. I mean, he is the face
point.
of the NHL. To me, he's the best player to ever wear 23.
Already. Michael Jordan of the Flyers? Is that what you're saying?
I just, honestly, like seeing him grow before this, he would have been a guy that could have potted easily 35 goals this season. He was on pace to score 32. So yeah, I think he would have taken the next step this year because I look at him.
He did.
Charlie did an excellent article. If you didn't get a chance to read it today, Reef, that's where I was referencing. His article shows Lindblom just forechecking his butt off, man. He did an excellent article just on forechecking videos and everything. And a lot of them, there were some videos, clips of Oscar Lindblom, and you know what I'm talking about. He is so good along the boards anyway. He's great at forechecking. The guy plays an effective two-way game, kicks butt, penalty killing, but forechecking in his area. And that was just a great piece. So if you get to see it, go ahead.
Shout out.
Yeah, damn right.
I think everybody should read it. Yeah, shout out. And
that's what I mean. Those are the intangibles of Oscar Lindblom. That's what he brought to this team. He just didn't have 11 goals and 7 assists, in 21 games or something like that it was, or something before, that's whatever. I mean, that's doom and gloom.
I'd have to...
we got to move on because, we don't want to rehash and stuff, So let's move on. Let's go to another doom and gloom topic. Wyatt Kalma, okay? And in 3 days, this gentleman has to sign. He has to sign by June 26th, or else he's a free agent. I don't know what time on June 26th. This is just all speculation on my behalf. 3 or 5, I was thinking, or something. Anywhere from 3 to 5, I was thinking. But do you think he signs, Reef? Is there a reason why he hasn't signed today?
I mean, I did expect him to sign. I guess as we're getting closer to down to the wire, I imagine if he's going to sign, it's going to be a last-minute signing, at this point. Like, it's going to be within the next 3 days, obviously, right? It's stupid. But in my opinion, that's how most negotiations work, especially one like this, right, where there's a complete mutual understanding. That obviously is the case, right? Same right? Like, it wasn't like mutually agreed upon that what the Flyers wanted, what Lashitsky wanted. They had to work with him. Same with Allison, right? They might be doing that with Kalynuk right now, and they're coming down to the wire to see if they can actually make that deal happen. Maybe he wants 3 years. Maybe he wants a one-way contract. And they're like, yeah, we're not giving you a one-way contract, but we'll give you a 3-year contract, right? Like, we're not going to pay you $1 million a year as a 7th-round pick coming into the NHL. It's not very common. So, maybe they're just kind of going back and forth because he exceeded expectations. Yeah. Right? I don't think that they expected their 7th-round pick from that year would be a legit NHL prospect that could play a bottom pairing in the NHL coming into the NHL, too. It doesn't normally happen. They just kind of take a flyer on him, right?
Not after his senior season. Not even playing his senior season. Yeah, especially, yeah. Already.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you.
The only logical thing I could see him holding out for right now in terms of leverage is he talking to Chuck Fletcher and Brent Flair and saying, where do I fit? I want a guaranteed, middle pairing spot. I want to know I could make this club realistically. Do you think that's being talked about? Do you think that he's talking about a guaranteed spot either with the Phantom, with the Flyers,
I think that's probably what he wants, and I don't think that's what he's going to get. No, I don't think there are any guarantees for these players. I don't think Wyatt Kalynuk has shown enough to say he guarantees himself an NHL spot. I mean, look what happened with Morgan Frost, and he's arguably more talented. He's obviously younger. Listen, it could be as simple as that. Maybe Wyatt Kalynuk's like, hey, I can go play in the NHL next year for a bad team. And maybe that's his thought, is like, I don't care if I'm not on a great team. I get paid, right? I get to play pro hockey. And then, after my 2 years, I move on. But I truly believe that a lot of players' best interest is to stick with the team that drafted them, though money counts. So if he thinks he can get more on that open market, which realistically he probably can, right? We've seen it happen quite a bit. There might not be anything the Flyers can do about it. And I don't necessarily want to see the Flyers shell out a bunch of cash for Wyatt Kalynuk, to be honest. I want to keep him. I definitely do. I don't want to let him go. I think he's valuable. But I have so many defensemen on my team. I'm like, I'm not going to prioritize Wyatt Kalynuk over other defensemen that I'm developing throughout the system that are willing to go through the process. If he's not willing to go through the process with the position the Flyers are in, they might be like, well, sorry. We're not going to take a spot away from some other kid or two kids, right? If we have to give you the money instead of giving it to, I don't know, we still have Sam Morton. We still have Robert Haig. We still have Mark Friedman, right? We have Wyatt Wiley who's coming in. We have these kids already that want playing time. It's like Wyatt Kalynuk might not be better than them either. And if he thinks that he is, again, I'm making a bunch of assumptions here, then I would let him walk. And again, sometimes you have to be a tough negotiator. And I think back to I would actually argue this is Toronto's biggest fault was not trading William Nylander. I stand by that. I think Brian Burke said it immediately. And I agreed with him because I think people underestimate why that stuff matters. And Lou Lamoriello is a beautiful example of that. It's you show up front that, hey, yeah, we will always negotiate. But if you get us into a position where you're going to hurt the team, I am going to get rid of you. Yeah. And I think sometimes you need to make that statement. And I think Hextall actually made that with Cooper Maruti back in the day a little bit, right? Because I think he wanted something more, and they just shipped him out.
And I agree. I'm still 90% confident that Wyatt Kalynuk will sign. I don't believe he wanted to. I don't believe he wanted to come out of college this year. I didn't get that impression with him in an interview in February.
That's a good point.
I just think that with this pandemic, Kelly's very into the NCAA, and it's not looking good at all for fall sports for at the NCAA level here. So I think that played a factor into him whether he was going to commit back to school or not. So I think this is all new territory for him. I think him and his family are talking, and they're getting everything down. And I think at the end of the day, his best pal in Travis Sanheim, who they are very good friends because they're from the Manitoba, region there. They have played hockey together for years. When they in the summertime, Wyatt Kalynuk was telling me that they get together and hang out and do everything. So I think at the end of the day, Travis Sanheim will be able to sway Kalynuk into a contract with the Flyers, and that's why I'm so optimistic with that. If I didn't know that he wasn't good friends with Travis Sanheim and there wasn't a link to the Flyers organization itself, I would probably say no at this point, with there only being 3 days. But with that link, but you also made a very good point as well. So those are 2 points tied in into saying that it's best to stick with your team because it could do more damage in the end. Mike Fishoni, he comes out, just wants to go. What happened with Mike, man? He didn't turn out for the Flyers, did he? But it is what it is, and sometimes it happens like that, as a free agent. I know he was undrafted. I get it. I understand it, but different situation. But just saying, I don't know. I think that just got to weigh the odds, and if you're a good player, you'll make it. If not, for one, you can never have too many defensemen. Especially a team can never have too many defensemen. There's too many injuries that transpire. You look at the Flyers all at once last year. look, they didn't have to. They had to call up Mark Friedman multiple times. Ghost went down. Samuel
Right.
Moran went so right there you're at 6. So what did you need to do? You needed to call up a 7. So Mark Friedman was back and forth with the Flyers. You'll always get your shot at calls up. Meyer sat a few games, or whatever, was benched, or something of that nature, to get his feet wet. He's a rookie. So
Sure.
he took on a very big role and played well, when given, but he needed a reset at times because he's young. And that's what's going to happen to these young guys. They're going to need
Right.
resets at times. Robert Haig sat a lot, for Ghost. It was just there's so many different factors. Plus, you got to play Provy in 5 more years. You're going to have to pay, possibly Zamula. You got to pay Travis Sanheim. You got to pay Felipe Myers. So all this, transpires to where you may actually be given a shot. But that's all I wanted to leave. If you have anything more to say on this particular topic, because we got to go on to the next topic because we still have 2 topics left.
Yeah.
But
No, yeah,
what's that?
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying, I agree. I think you just made good points, and I think there's a lot. I do expect them to sign. I think they're working out a contract right now, so
Yeah, I do too.
I think we should. Yeah, hopefully we hear one soon.
Maybe he held out because of the Lindblom situation, today with him being on the ice. Maybe he already did sign and they're holding out until tomorrow, to push more good news.
That's possible.
I mean, more good news helps the NHL. It could only help their cause as opposed to the MLB, to where they keep talking, are we going to play 60? We're going to play 48. Before you know it, they're only going to play 10 games and then have a playoff, So, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Here's this next topic is one I know you love this player, Brian Propp, Hall of Fame inductions. They are voting for Hall of Fame inductions tomorrow. Brian Propp is on the docket once again. Should he be in the Hall of Fame, Yuri, or should he not be, given his numbers?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a point per game pace. I mean, for the Flyers, he was a stud, like absolute stud. So, I mean, that's the way I see it. There aren't really better left wingers in Flyers history. I mean, there's a handful, but there aren't many. So yeah, I mean, his career reminds me of Simone Gagne's in some way. Only he was not. He was just more offensive. He was more of a goal scorer. I mean, you look at his career. I mean, he's got several 90-plus point seasons, several point per game seasons, or over a point per game season. Again, I think we talked about this before the podcast. His numbers with the Wheat Kings are in 71 games, 94 goals and 100 assists, 194 points at Wheat Kings. Obviously in the 70s, late 70s. So there's that whole era of the higher scoring. But I mean, at the time, he was a stud. So, and he finished his career strong. And I think he definitely deserves it. He's a big name in Flyers history. He's a big part of the Flyers family. I'm all for it, personally.
And to me, he's one of the most underrated players in Flyers history. And he would go down with Claude Giroux. The names that you hear, how often do you hear Brian Propp's name being in the mix? You always hear Bernie Parent. You always hear Bobby Clark, for good reasons. I mean, these are very good players. And it's no knock to them. They were very good players. Bill Barber, you hear about Mark Howe, all the time. Again, these are phenomenal players, and they're great people at that. And, I mean, Mark Howe's a very good scout, and stuff. But, I mean, again, these are very, very good players. Eric Lindros, you hear all the time. But one name that you very rarely, you even hear Tim Kerr a little bit, and stuff. And you hear about Rick McLeish. But one name that's often forgotten is Brian Propp. And that's the point that I want to make. To me, he's the 6th best Flyer to ever lace their skates up in this organization. 1,004 points in 1,016 games played. 4 90-point-plus seasons. Two seasons he had 97 points. There was a season where he had 92 and another season where he had 90. There is no reason in the world. I think he ended with 595 goals or something to that nature.
425 goals and 578 assists, 103 points, and 116. That actually. Yeah, well, for the player taken at number 14 in the draft, he seems to be 1, 2, 3, maybe fourth fifth, we got some other. We get Dale Hunter. There's some great players in here actually. Neil Broughton, Mark Messier.
You're the top in almost
some
every
great players.
category for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yes.
He is second or third in most categories. That shows you on how good this player was.
He's an elite player.
He
Absolutely.
was a career Flyer. Just imagine if he would have ended as a career Flyer.
And also, not only that, I mean, he was only 5'9", 190 pounds in an era that was very physical.
He's a superstar.
He's like another. It's like a Mark Recchi, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. There is no reason in the world why he should not be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Okay, I get it. He didn't crack, the 500 goal plateau. He didn't crack, the 50 goal season. He didn't have a 50 goal season. I get it. But he had over 1,000 points in 1,016 NHL career games. That is saying something. To me, you're not supposed to reach that pinnacle. You're not supposed to reach a point per game because your latter years you're supposed to fall off. He did not. He stayed consistent. He was very consistent. He had a consistent career. And that's what I look for. Durability is what I look for in terms of a Hockey Hall of Famer. And Brian Propp should be that guy. There is no reason in the world this guy should not be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. There are far worse players in the Hockey Hall of Fame, I hate to say it, than Brian Propp, in my opinion, anyway. It's very tough to get in there. I understand it. But this guy was a phenomenal player, and he's so underrated in the city of Philadelphia. There should be a statue. They're knocking down statues. People want to knock down statues. Well, build a Brian Propp statue.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think you bring up a good point that he's not valued as much as the other big names, but he really is. I mean, I guess you have Tim Kerr. You have other guys who have been maybe better goal scorers throughout the entire career. But again, like here's an example, Mark Recchi, right, which in my opinion, Hall of Famer. I mean, he's all-time great player. He's got because similar size, right? We can compare the two somewhat. They're not the same type of player, right? Recchi was more of a playmaker than a goal scorer. But if you look at Recchi, he had 577 goals in 1,652 games, right? So you look at the pace that Brian Propp put on. I mean, that's pretty high-level scoring. And Recchi finished just under a point per game. And same with Brian Propp, right? Like you're talking about elite-level players that were able to hit a really high level of performance over and over and over. And I agree with what you said, man. Consistency matters. I think maybe what might hurt him to some degree is just the longevity of his career, right? He played from 1979-80 to 93-94. Not that that's bad, right? That's pretty good. But he didn't do like that 14, 15, 16 season, like career-long lifer. For whatever reason, he did drop off at the end of his career, but for the most of it, he was really, really on point. So I think it's kind of up in the air, man. I feel like it's kind of hard, right? Because I'm for it, and for the Flyers, he is an immense legend, right? And we have our legends, Mark Howe and other guys. But when you start breaking it down against other players in the league, he's it sounds stupid. He's another superstar, He's not and that's where I think it's tough, right? But it's not just that to make in the Hall of Fame, right? It's also the story behind Brian Propp, and I think that's probably will, kind of play to his benefit a little bit. The fact that I'm pretty sure he was one of the best players on the team when he played here too. I don't think he had like a ton of help necessarily because it was the early 80s. It wasn't, a time period where, it wasn't like now they had a lot of talent with him, but like it wasn't an era where like Bobby Clark was at the top of his game, right? That season, if we look at it, actually, I got his numbers right here. Bobby Clark put up 69 points in 76 games that year, right? You had Ken Lindsman, who was, 79 points in 80 games. Reggie Leach, like these names are huge, right? Bill Barber, Propp, Leach, Lindsman. But again, like you said, we talk about Barber. We talk about Clark. We talk about Lindsman and Reggie Leach, right? Like Reggie Leach for sure, 50 goal scorer. Brian Propp is right there with him. And those are our legends. Like, those are our legends, right? They had very long careers. And we have a lot of legends that weren't point producers, but he did everything. And I think at the time, He was actually the youngest player of that group that I just named, right? Ken Lindsman was 21 years old at the time. Brian Propp was 20. Reggie Leach was 29. So you think about, he came into the league at 20 years old, and boom, he's on the top of the charts in scoring for the team. So that's the type of player you look for. I mean, those are elite players. So I think if you want to make a case for a player to make the Hall of Fame, you got to have that type of career. Coming to the NHL, it doesn't have to be your first year, but after at least a year or two, you start producing at a high clip, and it should never really go away. So I think it's a good chance that 1,000-point club is a big deal.
Yeah, I really hope. He is a dark horse to me, in my opinion, just because of, again, he's underrated in the city of Philadelphia. He doesn't have that as much notoriety as a Bill Barr. Even though he's one of the clutchest Flyers in playoff history, this guy is still but you see him all the time. He's very humble. He's very nice. Doesn't turn away from the fans and stuff. And he's just an overall great guy if you meet him. Of course, many of our fans have met him at the Wells Fargo Center at Xfinity Live. Right. And I have gotten to talk to him for hours in the press box. Fortunately, one game I talked to him for like close to 2 hours, to be honest. But it was just very nice to get to know him. And he said he will never be on the pedestal that the other Flyers alumni are. And I have to agree with him at this point, at this particular point, until he makes the Hockey Hall of Fame. Then, if he does, he will be mentioned with the Bill Barbers, the Bernie Perrants and stuff like that. So it's all very interesting. If we have enough time, we could go into our last topic. If we don't,
we do. Yeah, let's go into it. Let's go into our last topic.
Round robin tournament, anything can happen. The Flyers can move up from the 4th seed to the 1st seed, or to the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed. The 4th seed is not a guarantee. So that does not mean they're absolutely playing the Habs and the Pens. Who is the ideal first playoff matchup for the Philadelphia Flyers?
I mean, honestly, I'd take any of them. The way the Flyers played this year, there's not a single team out in that bottom tier that I am scared of. I guess maybe I'll say I don't want to play the Islanders just because they're so well coached. But you can make that case about like the Penguins too. They have a history of being really well coached also. Honestly, I'm not scared of any of the teams. I don't see it. Maybe Tampa Bay, Boston, those are typical, but nobody in our division intimidates me to think that the Flyers can't beat them. Yes, I have my least favorite, but for instance, like my number one of the top teams, I'd go after Washington. I'd go after the Capitals. I'm pretty sure we can beat them in a 7-game. Actually, I'm damn sure we can beat them in a 7-game series. I actually think we can beat any team in a 7-game series in the East. I don't see any team in the East from top to bottom, especially healthy. Again, healthy really matters in all of this because it's all speculation. And if you lose key players, I could talk all day. It's irrelevant. It goes for the same for the other guys. Like if Tampa Bay loses somebody big, like, they lose Hedman, stuff like that. We lose Coots, right? We lose G, we lose Hart, something like that.
Goalies. We have to talk about goalies too, because goalies
that's the thing.
Point from not having time on the ice and stuff, and that's where I think that the Flyers have they have more depth than other teams to get over these type of injuries. So let's say, God forbid, Carter Hart or Brian Elliott goes down with a groin pull, let's say, and not a major one. Let's just say it's a minor. They're out, a week, which could be 2 or 3 games. I'm okay with Alex Lyon possibly playing in one playoff game if he has to. You know why? Because Alex Lyon has proven maybe he can't carry the reins for multiple games, but he could come in against Colorado and put up one of his best games ever, okay, and almost shut out the Colorado Avalanche, which was one of the best teams in hockey at that particular time. I think they were riding like a 10 or 11 game winning streak, and then Alex Lyon just comes in and shuts the freaking door down. I mean, I am comfortable with Alex Lyon possibly playing in, a playoff game. But that, again, a lot of teams don't have that depth, like the Carolina Hurricanes, for instance. Who's going to be there if a goaltender goes down? Say Peter Mrazek goes down. Who comes in? David Ayers? The Zamboni driver? These are some things that we're talking about here, to where the Flyers have depth within their system. They don't just have Alex Lyon. So if Alex Lyon goes down, boom, you got Kirill Ustimenko. Now, would I be very scared with Ustimenko in the net? Yeah, because he's a rookie. But I'm just saying that the Flyers are in a decent situation because of their depth. At all positions, at all defense, at the goaltending position, at the forward position, and it's kudos to Ron Hextall, kudos to Chuck Fletcher, both of them working hand in hand. We wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for Hextall, a lot of it anyway, in terms of the depth at this particular point. Fletcher just added on and did well with that. He where Hextall left. So both of them were working hand in hand. But that's where I think that the Flyers have. So you know what? I'm with you. I don't give a damn who it is. I want to play the Capitals. I'd want the Capitals over the Penguins just because, like you said, I think Mike Sullivan is one of the best coaches in the NHL. I think he gets the most out of his team.
Got a couple cups.
Jake Gensel's coming back healthy. You have Chris Letang, who had miles on his tires, who is now going to come back.
They will benefit. They will benefit from this break. You're absolutely right. They had a lot of injuries.
The Penguins are elder to the Philadelphia Flyers at this point in terms of like the Malkins, the Crosbys. You give them rest. You give Letang.
Let's be honest though, Jamie. I don't mean to cut you off, but the winds are changing. So I think the NHL needs to be ready, and Penguins need to be ready, and the Capitals need to be ready.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm just saying it straight up.
Yeah. But
I mean, Jamie, listen, we've been waiting for this moment. I mean, anybody who's been following the Flyers for especially over Hextall's tenure, this is the year. This is the year. This is the year. Why? Because we knew inevitably that there will be a tipping point, and everything we've done will come together, and we're watching it. And when you watch the Flyers beat all these good teams in home-to-home battles confidently, and yes, it's a little further away now with the break, but that is a side of the Flyers, honestly, we have not seen in a very long time. Like, even the team that went to the playoffs, they didn't finish, or to the finals, they didn't finish that season very strong, That's not what we saw this time. We didn't see a team getting stronger and stronger and stronger. We actually saw a team kind of fall apart. Things got so easy for them mid-season that all of a sudden they started going downhill. They had to barely make it into the playoffs. What? With that much talent? That's not what we saw this time. We saw a team instilling their will on other NHL teams. Oh, what? You want to win? You need to make the playoffs? Too bad. We all saw that, right? Yeah. Every game we're like, maybe. Nope. They're going to be at home, back-to-back. Be in our house and in your house. And we'll do it to a bunch of teams in a row. That is not common. I mean, that's very rare to see. And I think that is a sign of a tipping point. And I said this in my Phil Myers video. It is a reflection of where this team is. The abundance of talent is here. Maybe it won't last forever, but it's here right now. So even if this season doesn't work out the way we want, well, guess what? Next season, the season after that, we already have a roadmap to, I don't want to say dominate, because it's never the case, but we have a roadmap to be consistently one of the best teams in the NHL. And that's what I see. And I think the best teams need to beat the best teams. So I don't want to be scared of anybody. My attitude is, if we're really that good, if we really stick to our system, we should be able to beat any team in the National Hockey League, including the Tampa Bay Lightning, including the Boston Bruins. I understand these are very good teams. The Flyers have the exact same level of talent. If not, they have more depth than outside of Tampa Bay, honestly. They have more depth than almost any team in the NHL. Again, Tampa Bay would be maybe the only team I can think of that has more depth. But that's like a silly amount of depth. And that probably won't stick either, because Yzerman is gone now. So you will see a decline probably in Tampa Bay. Hopefully it doesn't happen here. But I think it's the Flyers' time, man. I really do. At least time to be taken seriously.
I love it, and I think that's a good way to leave off anyway, for next week, man. Leave it on a high note here. All I can tell you, Flyers fans, we love you all very much. Getting gritty with it. We're here every week, Uref and myself, and we'll have more guests to come. We are hoping to nail down Landon Koziar. Curtis Gabriel possibly. Just trying to get some names, maybe Bill Clement. Who knows? Who knows who our guests are going to be, and we're great writers as well.
Yeah, and for sure, and definitely look out for more of our stuff. Like I mentioned, Franny Drummond. If you guys don't know who that is, he makes all the hockey goalie masks. We're gonna have him on eventually as well. So we're gonna keep the unique stuff going, and leave us comments if you guys have anybody that you want us to try to get on the podcast. I mean, we can definitely try. We can't make any promises, but we're definitely trying. We're trying to bring on more guests and maybe some more unique guests that we don't normally see, like we've kind of done with other people. Bring some people in from other programs and see what we can get going on this show. But agree with what Jamie said. I mean, thank you so much, everybody, listening, especially as the world is going crazy and we're just dying for some hockey. Let's be honest.
We just made it positive.
Yeah. So let's stick with the positivity. And I think the Oscar Lindblom news is a sign of things to come, man.
God bless. And, the Flyers, I'm telling you, fans, get ready. Because just like your Reef said, this is going to become a freaking dynasty. A dynasty is coming. Okay? This is it. To 2030, this is the Flyers' time. NHL better be prepared. They better be on the lookout. Okay? So, and that's all, we love you all. Take care. Have a good one.
Jamie, we're totally going to get made fun of for being too positive about this episode. This is like us just like...
I get it all the time.
Cheering.
But you know what? I'm negative when I have to be. It's just, I don't have to be negative very often. That's the thing about it. Like, what is there to be negative about right now? Oscar Lindblom, nice. The Flyers are going to whoop some ass. They became the most deadliest team in hockey. What the fuck?
I love it. To our fans, once again, thank you so much. Thanks again for listening. And love from Jamie and I. And remember to always stay cool.